Cosmic Confluence Podcast, a space where we explore the edges of lived experience, systems, and consciousness without rushing to certainty. I'm Sana, your host, and today's conversation, listeners, it sits in a delicate and often polarized space, healing outside of traditional medical modalities. Now, hear me out. Many of us have been taught that healing is something that happens to us inside hospitals, clinics, or treatment protocols. And while those systems they do save lives and they matter deeply, they don't always hold the full complexity of human experience. Listeners, today we are joined by Kim McCarthy and Kellie Hazlett, collaborators behind Healing Through the Quantum and contributors to multiple podcasts that explore how health, caregiving, systems, and personal agency intersect. Now, listeners, Kellie is living with the diagnosis label of ALS, and she's currently in the process of reversing her symptoms through evidence based informed, integrative, and lifestyle based approaches without rejecting medical care or offering false certainty. And Kim brings a systems level lens, asking the questions many people feel, but they aren't encouraged to voice. So, this is not a conversation, listeners, about miracle cures or rejecting science. No, it is not. But it is a conversation about nuance, about agency, about what happens when lived experience falls through the cracks between systems. So let's begin. And Kim and Kellie, welcome to Cosmic Conference. And I'm really, really honored to have both of you here with us.
Thank you for having us.
Thank you so much.
Of course. Of course. And to begin with, I mean, this is a question to both of you. When people hear healing outside traditional modalities, now this has always been the debate. Like there's an ever-going debate between science and spirituality. Sometimes they collide, sometimes they beautifully blend, but then most of the time it goes like to the extremes, and reactions can range from hope to skepticism to outright dismissal as well. So how do you define healing outside the traditional medical systems without positioning it as anti-medicine or magical thinking?
Perfect question.
Mm,
I have a extensive medical background, so I don't discount the medical community whatsoever. However, in this particular journey,
mm,
there just isn't any real support through the medical community. So it's really up to me, um, with my healing journey to
mm,
set the precedence. I've used if the biggest, I guess the biggest, um, what's the word I want to use? Is my mindset. Like
mm,
knowing that healing is possible, knowing that if I have the right team, the right connections, the right research,
mm,
all of it, the body wants to be in an optimal, balanced condition. It doesn't want to be in this state of weakness.
mm,
So just knowing that that's possible has been a huge kickback, and a
mm,
really big jump since I've taken control of my journey, my healing journey.
mm, mm. It does, it does. And Kim?
Um, I think that the traditional uh, medical community
Mm,
is so highly honed in immediate diagnoses and potential prognoses that that they just forget or they're not allowed to look outside of those parameters or boundaries. And having come from a traditional background and then opening up to holistic healing, that's where I find that if the communication is just right, then both of the practices, holistic versus and allopathic, can work together in collaboration because I feel that the traditional path is looking for short-term solutions, and if it's not short-term, then the long-term easy answer is hospice, and that's not true.
Hmm. Okay. Now, I actually got a sense of it because um what I am, and it's kind of my reflection that healing isn't being framed as fixing or curing, like this one stop solution in a simplistic sense, but as expanding what care actually includes. And maybe, I mean, the spaces that medicine often doesn't have time, structure, or incentives to hold. I mean, there are factors like emotional safety, environmental stress, caregiving load, there's personal agency. And they all of these, they do matter. Um, but then I believe, there are efforts happening at individual level, but then at the systemic level, I think there's still a long way to go ahead. So, uh, and this is to both of you once again, Kelly and Kim, like, where do you see the biggest gap between what patients need and what traditional systems are realistically able to provide? Is it just that, the traditional system is focusing on a quick fix, a quick cure?
Yeah, I would definitely second that. I can
Yeah.
tell you I'm volunteering for an organization called
Yes.
Healing ALS, and
Mm,
it's one of the only ones that I have found that actually identify and quantify results. So they did a study in 2024.
mm,
There were 48. I don't particularly like to call myself a patient.
okay.
At the outside allopathic world would call me a patient. That did a year's, I will take it like a little, they quantified the registry of the, so me as an individual will put all of my information in what I do monthly. What am I
Mhm.
taking? Am I eating? When am I exercising? All of that. And they crunch the data, and out of the 48 people, 60% stayed the same and 80% improved. So as a total, there was only, I think, 20% that actually declined. And it was a very significant small pointage. Where if you look at the trajectory of this particular diagnosis, that is not common. So now we've stepped into doing 1,000-person study to really try to streamline what are people doing to recover from this illness, to reverse the symptoms, and not have the 2 to 5 year terminal diagnosis. So I think that's such a beautiful support system, acknowledging those of us that are outside the system that aren't participating in the drug trials, that are doing alternative things to track it and see really there's got to be commonalities on what's working because people are getting better.
Mm,
And there's a and that's worldwide, that's not just in the US.
mm. And that is actually good to know. That is good to know, Kelly. Kim, would you like to jump in?
Well, I agree with both of your assessments, yours and Kelly's. The allopathic traditional community, they I'm unsure how to do it other than with these studies
Mm,
that are coming out, but to communicate to the larger community that there are alternatives and there are options, but also, and this is really important, there's hope. And in while healing through the quantum, having holistic modalities, you can see more of the hope and the progress than if early in the process you're given a hospice designation, then you feel as though you can't, how can you crawl out of that hole? And you can. The
mm,
studies are proving it.
mm. Yeah. And I also believe that, and this is globally because, I have had multiple conversations with guests um, for whom the Western And this is not just that I'm differentiating between the effectiveness or putting a particular modality or a treatment or maybe a tool at a higher pedestal. It's just that there are different modalities and they work differently for everyone. There's not just one singular solution working out for everyone. But then if I believe that, there is a possibility and there are researches, there are studies, there are visible, tangible outputs of holistic, not medicine, but holistic modalities working out for people, including medical care, then there is no harm in considering instead of just dismissing outrightly.
Absolutely. Using it, and I think since neuromuscular diseases, using a multifaceted approach
Mm.
to healing, because the body is head to toe,
Mm.
inside and out, and
Yes.
using energy as a very powerful frequency modality.
Mm.
That's been probably the biggest key for me improving is using and employing frequency treatments.
Oh,
We've seen a significant jump that now that I've got this balance and I'm not caught in the system,
uh-huh.
uh, chasing. I had a huge epiphany when I was at a clinic. Why am I giving my power away? I have the ability to heal. I
Uh-huh.
don't need to go to a clinic or a outside source. It's me. I need a safe, supportive network
Mhm.
to help, right? To keep me alive. And I am the one who's making the changes. I'm the one who's really working on the emotional baggage. Because
Mhm.
you don't heal emotionally and not healing inside. I think that the outside just takes a lot longer to get to that point. So recognizing that and putting all those puzzle pieces together, I think is really a key.
Mhm.
That's really important to know that it is a complicated network.
Mhm.
If you only isolate symptoms and modalities or opportunities, if you look at the body system and physicality as a whole and how it integrates with itself, then you can open up to more levels of healing.
Hmm. Yeah, I agree. I agree. And I think this is powerful and then limiting as well because, like, and specifically in terms of language, like, because, Kerry, I mean, you currently carry the diagnosis label of ALS and then also experiencing changes you describe as symptom reversal. I mean, this is definitely a charged topic, like both emotionally and scientifically. So I think a diagnosis can become um, a script people feel trapped inside, not
Yep.
just medically, but then psychologically and socially as well, because somehow it becomes like this label, exactly like you describe it, Kelly.
It's yeah, it's horrific. I spent probably 9 months planning my funeral, and I'm quite young and very healthy, extremely active. And then to get this kind of a label, yeah, at first I took it as face value, thought, okay, it's my time, make the
Mhm.
appropriate transition.
Mhm.
But then I woke up and said, I that's just weird. Why would me? All I did was hit my head on some ice. I didn't I had no medical history or issues prior to that. Um, so yeah, I just had I had a huge hiccup mind shift and said, no, this is fixable. I'm probably going to take some time.
Mhm.
Um, but that's okay. I have the time. Time is on my side.
That's a huge mindset shift. It's a huge mindset shift, and it's quite a um I should say, I mean, it's kind of hard to describe because even the strongest people can break down in such difficult moments. How, and this is to both of you, but I would like to begin with Kelly. Kelly, how do you navigate sharing your experience responsibly, without creating false hope, but then also without reinforcing hopelessness?
So I don't believe in false hope. I don't even feel it. That's something you can identify because
Mhm.
we, just being human, live in a very hopeful environment.
Mhm.
It's choice, right? You make a
Yeah.
choice. You want to work through this symptom by symptom, step by step, or you don't. And it's okay if you don't. It's a very tough existence to live in this kind of state. I just call it kind of an altered state of consciousness because
Mhm.
I know the perfection is right there. I'm just trying to bring her in and merge her again.
Yeah. Yeah. Kim, anything that you would like to say?
Well, Kelly and I align and resonate in every way. So of course I agree and resonate with everything she's saying. Um, a, a big, as she said, a big part of it is not giving your power away.
Exactly.
So once you reclaim your power, and then I believe it starts in the head. It starts with your focus, your intention, and where your energy is going, because but where you perceive, then that's where you're going to receive. And when you're in a situation that isn't natural, such
Mhm.
as having the label of ALS, then you really got to get in your mind and say, no, this I am going to come out of this, and
Mm.
the way you judge it is through much smaller levels of success, such as moving a hand
Mm.
or standing for 10 minutes versus 5 or more. So you really need to get into the mindset of it and know where your energy and perception is so that then you can receive that healing.
Hmm. Hmm.
And have a good cheerleader.
Yeah, exactly. Exactly. And one thing that, I really kind of connect with you, Kim, on this that, it doesn't have to be like this huge shift. It can be as small as, okay, 5 minutes or 10 minutes of standing, maybe a gentle, a very gradual improvement or gradual change. I mean,
We've
that's,
noted.
yes, yeah, yeah. And I think that's where many listeners feel that, oh my goodness, okay, if you're telling me, or if I see that, okay, medical systems are not helping in this, and maybe holistically I can seek solutions, then it has to be very visible. No, it will take its own time, but then yes, um it's visible, but then it's gradual. And moving on, Kim, I would like to come to you because your work, it consistently zooms out to systems like this: healthcare, housing, employment, caregiving structures. From your perspective, how do how do institutional systems, I mean, unintentionally make healing harder, even when they would be genuinely well intentioned? I mean, on paper, it all looks like, it's put in the good thought.
Right. So I think that's part of a bigger issue, but I'm only going to mention one variable that comes to mind, but
Mm.
really they're all interconnected. And that would be, say, at least for us, the American healthcare system with regard
Mm.
to insurance.
Mm.
Insurance allows and approves what they deem to be uh, appropriate for your healing process. And if they don't feel that it is part of that process, either you have to go through a long and arduous appeal process
Mm.
or accept it and move on. And that's hard enough when you're in a body that is struggling to get back to its homeostasis. So when you have the support of in our situation, having the support of alternative modalities and the science behind why you should have whole body healing holistically, um, then that's where you see the great divide between, um, in this example, insurance, healthcare, and
Mm.
healing.
Mm.
Oftentimes, the traditional insurance pathway for American healthcare is preventive from healing.
Yeah, yeah. And sometimes it really feels like it's, ridiculous.
Right. And that's where uh, Kelly and I are involved with other organizations,
Uh-huh.
telling them that there are different ways that you can achieve healing and different success rates. But you do have to step into the holistic world, outside of the traditional healthcare and insurance, paradigm.
Mm. And to both of you, Kim and Kerry, do you believe that, especially with respect to insurance, because I think this is not only for uh, the US, but in India as well. I mean, the medical systems. I mean, insurance is one of the hottest and one of the most challenging aspect of the especially the healthcare system, that people intentionally or unintentionally, planned or unplanned, they have to deal with it. Do you believe that there is a possibility of change in the way it is perceived, or it is, or maybe the insurance world would accept this?
I mean, that's our hope. That's why we launched this 1,000-person study to show, I mean, so coming from a medical background, ALS is probably one of the worst diagnoses that you can receive. I mean, it beats cancer hands down. And so by flipping the paradigm and letting the medical community and the insurance community know that, I mean, in the big picture, it's treatable. All they have to
Mhm.
do is remove the terminal and say it's a chronic condition, no different than Parkinson's, MS, Alzheimer's. It all works in the same brain pattern. It just affects different areas. Mine is motor neuron. Um, by doing that and showing that with through this study at the end of this year, well, hopefully we'll have a
Mhm.
really a large amount of data saying if we streamline holistic integration with medicine, we will push the will make a big impact on the insurance industry and the money-making industry and the medical. That's why we're so, in tune to really staying the staying the cause, running that ship, keeping it streamlined.
I really appreciate that, Kelly. Kim, anything that you would like to add into it?
Which I agree, I concur. Like I said, Gilly and we travel the same path, along our belief systems, and, uh, I think a key part of it is being open. A lot of people, it's cost prohibitive to go outside of the insurance and healthcare.
Mm.
And so when it's coming out of pocket, then oftentimes that can prevent moving forward in the healing process. But as we get more of this information out there, then it becomes easier to go within and start that process of healing.
And getting covered modalities that are
Mhm.
considered deemed holistic would be
Mm.
covered, making it more accessible for patients and clients.
I hope so. I hope so. I think that has to be a major overhaul, and I'm still bullish on that. And of course, I mean, people like you, Kevin Kelly, carrying forward this movement. I hope so that one day it gets considered, and at least there is the first step taken to be at least considered, because that itself would be a huge change. But yeah, yeah. And also, before we wrap up, I think this is also a very um, crucial question, specifically with respect to non-traditional healing paths. And to both of you, once again, the question. So, one critique of it is that they rely too heavily either or on anecdotes or intuition. So, how do you personally discern between what is evidence informed, what is experiential, and what might simply be wishful thinking?
I truly trust And I'll tell you, it's an evolution because I've been at this 4 years now, 4 years
Mhm.
since my head injury. It's intuition. I don't, if I feel inside this is the right step for today, I mean, I whittle it down to every hour of the day, then I
Mhm.
trust it and I don't question it. I don't have to prove anything to anybody. And the study that I'm in, I just put everything in there and that's what I did. And this is what we're going to do. Um, I think that's huge. And meditation has been a lifesaver. So I can stay in that space and really get those internal answers. Um,
Mhm.
but that's particular to me. I've
Mhm.
had a lot of trauma in my life. So I think my body has just learned to trust what's inside.
Mhm. Mhm. Yeah. And Kim.
Oh, yeah. Internally, as always, go to your source first.
Okay.
But you also need to get acquainted with your source. And
Mhm.
most people have been conditioned against that, and that's what we're normalizing in our lives and within our community. That you must go inside and what is your journey and what is your truth, and through that, then that's when you start to get your perception for then you can receive whatever the healing and in what way. So that's how I move forward.
Mhm. That's actually good and very powerful to know because um, here is this refusal to collapse complexity into either trust science only or trust yourself only. But then once again, like just out of responsibility, and Kim and Kelly, this is across the globe, not just one specific country. But then sometimes it's very unfortunate to hear sometimes that people there are people who can take advantage of others' vulnerability or that hopelessness or this expectation. Okay, I got rejected by the systems, or maybe I decided to get out of the system and look out for alternate options or holistic modalities, and this is the best possible solution I can see right now. But then the intention behind that is completely different. um so, are there any warning signs or any quote unquote red flags that listeners should watch for when exploring integrative or alternative approaches? Especially when they are vulnerable.
Yeah, I would absolutely, because I have tried a lot of different modalities,
Oh, yeah.
trusting that just because somebody says it's going to work or it works for them doesn't necessarily mean it's going to work for me. And I've been pretty open to a wide gamut of alternative healing.
Okay.
Um, so I know, if I do something or I accept something and try something and it doesn't resonate, like I feel bad, then I stop. So
Mhm.
give yourself permission to go, it wasn't a mistake. Nothing ventured, nothing gained is my philosophy. But you have to be very soft and ginger when you're dealing with neuromuscular. Because you're fragile. I feel like the nervous system is just in this little fragile box, and tip it the wrong way, you'll crack it. So you've got to
Mhm.
be very careful. And learning that patience, that's been a huge thing because I'm like AAA personality, 4 degrees, worked a million jobs, traveled the world. And now I'm like, Terry, boy, does that force you to stop and reevaluate existence. And
Yeah.
why did I always have to put the go, go, go as a priority rather than the stillness? Because within stillness is healing. I don't have to do anything and I'm healing.
Hmm.
I've learned
Yeah.
that. Believe me, it wasn't easy.
Hmm. I understand that, Kelly. Understand. And before we wrap up, Kim, anything that you would like to add on before we conclude?
I'm just so grateful for this opportunity to talk about healing through the quantum and holistic modalities, because there's, I like to use the word hope. There's always
Mhm.
hope.
Yeah, there is. There is. And of course, if our listeners they would like to connect with both of you, Kim and Kelly, maybe they have their own experiences, their thoughts, or they would like to seek help or wisdom from you, how they can connect with you,
I'm sorry, I didn't hear that last bit.
how they can connect with you, yeah, with both
Oh,
of
she
you. Yeah.
Oh, yeah, I'm sorry. Um, it so our email is jump into INTO at the pipeline strategies.com. And of course, the pipelinestrategies.com, its website and our social media on LinkedIn, Instagram, Facebook, YouTube is where the podcast Healing Through the Quantum is stationed. And then we also have Patreon.
Awesome. That's great. Now, listeners, I'm going to mention all the links in the show notes. So just refer to them attached along with this episode. And I believe it's safe to say here, listeners, that this conversation with Kim and Kelly reminds us that healing isn't a destination, it is a relationship with our body, with systems that both help and fail us, with hope, as Kim said, that doesn't demand certainty. So thank you, Kim. Thank you, Kelly. Thank you for bringing this up because uh, you know you offered something quieter, like a permission to ask better questions, to have our agency, to not give power to anyone else, but gain it back to us. So thank you so much to both of you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Appreciate it. Have a blessed day.
Thank you. And thank you to all of our listeners for holding space for complexity. Until next time, this is Cosmic Confluence, and I will catch you in the next episode. Till then, take care.